You're a system admin, you're looking at your dashboards, and you're thinking, how can I gain visibility into the domains, the IP addresses, the outbound traffic of my users and the fleet devices in my corporate environment? Well, within this video, we're going to look at Microsoft's solution to this with web content filtering, with an allow and block list under that, as well as looking at cloud app discovery with sanctioning and unsanctioning apps. So let's get into it. Defensive insights within a compressed format. First, we're going to navigate to our Defender admin portal. So go to security.microsoft.com and we're going to open up the collapsed system and select settings. Now, in settings, we're going to go to our endpoints. Then in endpoints, we're going to stay in advanced features that is selected by default. Otherwise, click advanced features. We're going to scroll down until we find web content filtering. We're going to select on. Now, web content filtering, my understanding of it is that it's a broad approach towards filtering out your web content. So it's not necessarily granular, although you can get granular in its manual approach, we're going to talk about in a minute. But out of the box, you kind of think of this as your categories you're going to block against, like traditional DNS filtering. So we turn that on, press Save Preferences. Once we've turned that on and saved it, we're going to stay within settings and then endpoints and go to web content filtering. This is where we're going to create our policy and we're going to look at overarching categories to block against. So give it a name, something better than what I have in this video. And we're going to see all of these categories in the next option for blocked categories. And these are the categories that we can select to block outright against all of our devices. So adult content in a corporate environment probably can select all of those. High bandwidth, now this is one that's probably going to be more custom, or you might want to just leave it off. So say peer-to-peer, you go, oh, well, we don't need peer-to-peer, but you'll find that some underlying connections do use peer-to-peer, so just be careful with that one. And you've got different options there as well, like image sharing and the like. Next is legal liability and leisure, as well as uncategorized. Now, another note to mention with leisure, you might want to allow professional networking. So, for instance, LinkedIn or social networking if you're using marketing a lot in your environment within the social media, Facebook, Instagram, the like. But you can select those and select next when you're happy. So take the time to customize that for your environment. That's going to apply to all devices or all machines in your environment. You get a summary and submit. Once that's submitted, you will then have a policy that is blocking against categories that Microsoft has predefined with the selected domains that they have found for those categories against all your devices. So, hey presto, you've got a good net, and that's a good start, but it's not granular enough. So, where do we go from here? Well, if we go to indicators, again, still in settings and endpoints, we get a few more options here. So, we can block file hashes, IP addresses, URLs and domains, and certificates. So, we're going to talk about URLs and domains. So you can see here in my predefined list, I have ChatGPT set to warn. Now, why would I do that? Well, I use ChatGPT. I'm not against ChatGPT, but in a Microsoft first environment, you're going to get a lot more control out of Copilot in organizational policies, data loss prevention, the like. And in that environment, you might want to have preference for Copilot so as to avoid those said things. And so this is where you can get that granular approach to add. And I'm just going to use ChatGPT as an example here. So chatgpt.com. So we put the domain or the URL here. We're going to call that ChatGPT. And description, we're going to say Chat AI other than Copilot. Now we can have an expiry on whether we allow or deny these rules. So I'm going to just say never for this example. And then we get these options. So we can allow, so we can go whitelist approach. We can audit, which is just to warn the user. It'll have a little pop-up that says, hey, you're not meant to, but that allows them to sorry, no, audit will just have a look at it. Warn is the one that will have that come up for the user, warn them, but allow them to bypass it. And next is block. So I'm going to choose warn for a moment. And if I click warn, you can choose if you want to bypass for the duration. So do you want to bypass always, every 1 hour, once a day, once a week? And then you can have a custom URL. So, for instance, in an environment that you have your own internal policy or internal SharePoint site or something like that, that's going to give the user more resources to why this is blocked or warning them before they go forward, you can put that there. Otherwise, you can use the default that's provided by Microsoft. Then click next and you can generate alert or not generate an alert. So that just depends on your environment. And that's just going to come up in your Defender portal so that your security admins can take action on that and go further. Now I'm going to go back for the moment and select block. And we're going to see that it's a little bit different. So if we click block, we don't get the option to are we allowing bypass, because we're not. And that's where we can generate alert or not. So that's the same. Then we click next, and that's going to apply to everyone. And then we're going to have a summary and submit, which I won't right now, but you can in your own time. So with that, we've now looked at web content filtering. So we can do category sort of filtering, which is sort of reminiscent of DNS filtering. And then we can do a whitelist, blacklist approach to get more granular against file hashes, IP addresses, URLs and domains, and certificates, where we've only covered URLs and domains in this video. But Microsoft actually provides something that's, I want to say, a little better than this. It's a little bit more context rich than this, and that is cloud apps, cloud app discovery more specifically. So cloud app discovery, it looks at the outbound connections and it correlates it to a cloud app. And Microsoft has gone ahead and predefined a few thousand and given them a score out of different metrics. So for their general, security, for their compliance, and their legal. So not only do you see, okay, where is this data going, who's accessing what device, what IP address, what user, but you're also seeing the app itself. What does it have out of 10 against these different set subjects: general, security, compliance, and legal, which is then going to give you the ability to go, okay, I don't actually know this app. I don't need to look up the reputation. I can use what Microsoft has given me to build that reputation and say, I actually don't want that. It's a security risk or a compliance or a legal risk in our environment. I'm going to unsanction it, which is then going to block it. And it also will report. So how do we get started with this? Well, we go to advanced features and we enable this. So while advanced features is loading, I will say that if you do have this not set up and you go to cloud discovery, you will be prompted that you can actually set it up there. And I believe you can just click through and it'll do the same thing. Otherwise, we go to our settings, endpoints, advanced features, and we enable Microsoft Defender for cloud apps. Turn it to on and save preferences. And we can see a little bit of description here where it says forwards Microsoft Defender for endpoint signals to Defender for cloud apps, giving administrators deeper visibility into both sanctioned cloud apps and shadow IT. It's a good way to say it. And it goes on. Now we're going to look at that in my environment. So if we click Cloud Discovery, give that a bit of time to load, and we get dropped into this dashboard. So this dashboard gives us the top view of all of the traffic or all of the cloud app discovery data. So we can see a few top insights here. We can see app categories. We can also see the app's headquarter locations. We can see risk levels against the traffic. We can see top entities, which is just the user against the traffic. So the total, the highest traffic amount being at the top with that user, then discovered apps. So this is really good to get a general insight, but where we're going to get most of the information from is under Discovered Apps, the next tab. So under Discovered Apps, we're going to see all the apps that have been discovered in our environment. So we can see here I have gone through and sanctioned a few of these, but yours should, if you have never set it up, should not show if it's sanctioned or unsanctioned. It just won't be marked. So we can see there's a lot of first-party ones here. So it's irrespective. It just takes everything. And we can see Microsoft Teams and this risk score being 10 and green, which is good. So if I click on that, it's going to pop out a little display here, which we can actually see more granular if we clicked on the name. And we can see it's broken down into those areas that I spoke about earlier. So general, that's going to give us information generally about that app. Security, so it's got different types of security. So for instance, penetration testing. Does this app carry out penetration testing to detect and assess network vulnerabilities? Yes. Great. That's a good thing. Compliance. Okay, it's compliant against all of these different frameworks. And then legal, and we've got different legal check marks as well. Data ownership, GDPR, the right to erasure, and the like here. So we can see here, this is a good app when it comes against the risk metric that Microsoft's giving us. And the way in which we allow it in our environment, or sanction it is the word Microsoft uses here, is we just click this little tick and then it gets sanctioned. Or we can click the cross, if you will, and that's unsanctioned. So when we're in this environment, we want to probably look at the higher risk, so the lower number. So here we can filter that out. So I'm going to say anything under 6. Give that a minute to load. We can see all of these here, and I'm going to pick on Suno for this demo. So Suno is an AI engine that makes music. It's relatively new, I believe, but you can see here the information about it. You can see the domains that are linked to it. You can see the data center is in Canada and the headquarters are in the US. And then under security, if we look at penetration testing, it says not applicable or doesn't know. Okay, that's not great. What about this? Remember password? No, it doesn't have that set up. MFA is an option. No, it doesn't have that set up, but it has other things set up like HTTP, security headers, supports SAML, and you can see a few more here, but we're not getting a full score because Suno doesn't meet all of the areas. Compliance doesn't show compliance against any framework, so it's a bit of a concern. And then legal, you can see legal here. So it all depends on your risk acceptance and risk appetite for the environment. So for instance, if we're using Suno internally just to play around with, and the people using it are just using it for a bit of fun, we're not storing information on it, we're not letting it access secure areas, then maybe we can look at this and say, oh, it's an acceptable risk. Not saying that it is, I'm just saying that you have to look at it holistically. And Microsoft helps with this risk score. So, for instance, we can see that Reddit here has a low risk score, but it's been sanctioned in the environment. And that's because it's being used not necessarily to store information or to leak information, and not even to sign in, but to just look at general posts that are, against IT forums and things like that. So that's sort of an accepted risk, but it might not be in your environment because it could be used potentially to leak data. It could be used for any measure of things. So don't just look at a risk score and say, oh, low risk score, unsanctioned. Think about it holistically and use that metric to help you to make that decision. So we're going to go back to Suno for a minute now. Here it is. And if we click on the actual name, it's going to bring out the more in-depth approach towards this cloud app. So we can see here sort of an overview of that app. And if we use cloud app usage, we can actually get granular in not only the time dates and the usage amounts, but we can actually tie to users, IP addresses, devices, any incidents that might have occurred connected to this. So that does it. Now you know how to monitor, manage, audit your environment for any outbound connections that are going to be tied to your users, the IP addresses, and the devices, and to sanction and unsanction those actions on a category-based web content filtering method, on a whitelist blacklist method, or using cloud app discovery, where Microsoft gives you the insights into the reputation of said apps against the different metrics that they provide. So I hope that's helped, and please go and leverage the other videos that are part of this series, which is 0 to 60 in Microsoft 365. It's all about getting up to speed in administering and managing your Microsoft 365 tenant and environment. Now, a little plug right at the end of this video is that I am the owner operator of Ingest Services. We are a Microsoft 365 consultation and implementation service. We don't compete with MSPs or internal IT. Rather, we will come alongside and augment that process. So if you need help, go to www.ingest.services.